Douglas Bickford, 10 March 21. How can I stop abusing alcohol, drugs, food, sex, others, myself? Abuse is always an addictive behavior. We abuse things in order to stop the pain of life and to make us momentarily feel better, stronger, more in control, or to escape from the reality of our lives. Because abusive behavior gives us a sense of control or fosters the illusions of escape for the moment. We repeat the behavior, but abuse always generates guilt, and guilt produces a vicious circle. It is like a snake with its tail in its mouth, which was discussed in an earlier question about guilt. We do something that we know it's wrong, is wrong or bad. Then we feel guilty about it, and this feeling of guilt is a panacea. At first, we are relieved that we are feeling guilty, because that means that we are really not bad people. Because we have learned that bad people do not feel guilt. But after a while, the guilt keeps growing and the pain of the guilt becomes intolerable. Then we begin to externalize and justify our guilt. We say things like, I wouldn't have done that if he had not done what he did, or she made me do that, or they just don't understand me. This stuff happened in my 3.5-year relationship all the time. I tried to quit drinking. I didn't even drink when I went into the relationship, but she talked me into drinking again. It was just wine, that's what she said. There's nothing wrong with it. Just a glass or two. But here's the bottom line. Alcohol is alcohol. I don't care what kind of alcohol it is. And 3.5 years, I tried to quit drinking, and she'd always drag me back in. And then, of course, we had her drug-addicted brother living on the property. Not only pot, alcoholic, a drug addict, pot, alcohol, and cigarettes. All three of those things. And always justified it, just like his sister justified it. She was addicted to him. He had to live on our property. And I quit drinking about 2 months prior to the relationship ending, because I said, I'm not doing it anymore. You go ahead and drink all you want. And then that ended up really being one of the reasons we split up, because we would party on Friday nights, and I was no longer part of that party night, okay? We'd all get together. I ended up smoking pot and everything else. But so I started abusing drugs and alcohol. And then when I quit drinking, then she would drink with her brother, and then they would she was like, oh, let's have a toast. Doug doesn't drink anymore. So he would come in there on Friday nights, and I wouldn't partake of the drinking anymore. So it was no fun anymore for them, because I quit drinking. But she felt guilty about it. She was always telling me, oh, you think I'm an alcoholic? Yeah, you are an alcoholic. But I couldn't say that then, because it'd be a big fight, because she was convinced she had no problem with drinking. So anyway, she was trying to mask the pain with alcohol of her childhood and everything else that happened to her when she was a kid by her abusive parents. Anyway, They just don't understand me. All too soon our rationalizations or defenses begin to sound so reasonable and our behavior is justified that we do it again. This is the vicious circle of addiction. Guilt, justification, and more addiction. This is the circular snake. It is an addiction, folks. All of it. All addictions, all abuse are of self or others have one thing in common. They are all a product of insecurity about yourself. They are all a way to try to externalize your lack of love for yourself. You cannot love yourself and behave in loving ways to yourself and also abuse yourself. You also cannot really love others and abuse them and yourself around them. All abuse, all addictions at first and foremost are self-centered. They mean that you are perceiving the world only through the eyes of your own needs. They mean that your insecurities, your weak ego are so powerful that they totally control your behaviors. The most successful interventions for abusive and addictive behaviors are those that replace the destructive behavior with a constructive one. In other words, you replace a bad addiction with a good addiction. Alcoholics replace alcohol with AA. Drug addicts replace a drug with a 12-step program. So it is with food, sex, and other forms of abuse. The abusive behaviors are replaced with constructive behavior. 12-step programs work because they fill the void when you decide to give up the addiction. They give you something else to focus upon, and they give you a place to spend your time and energy. There is something else that the supportive group gives you that may even be more important than replacing the addiction. The group gives you an encouraging environment, which is essential to avoid the discouragement that the addiction feeds upon. These 12-step program role models for how to stop self-abuse. They accept you as you are, a human in pain, and they do not expect you to be perfect. Rather, they emphasize that you cannot be perfect and that you can turn yourself and your addiction over to a higher power. You do not have to be strong in order to conquer your addiction. You do not have to become perfect. 12-step programs are an excellent way to learn self-esteem. 12-step groups, like all good support groups, are very powerful therapy. They are more powerful than the addiction and the self-abuse if you let them be. By accepting you as you are, the group teaches you to accept yourself. By encouraging you to be the best you can be, the support group becomes a positive role model for self-love. There you have it, folks. If you're in, I'm going to keep saying this, tell yourself in the mirror you love yourself in the mirror every day. First step in getting self-esteem. Second step is get a book. This one's called A Portable Therapist. This is probably one of the best ones I've ever read. Well, it's the only one I've ever read, actually. And it will change your life. This book will. And I know from experience, everybody does drugs and alcohol because you're masking the pain of your childhood or whatever has happened to you when you're a kid, whatever has happened to you as you're an adult. And until you get help for that, you can never, ever live a normal, happy, healthy life. And you'll never find the right person. You'll never be able to have a healthy relationship until you get self-esteem. And you'll continue to use drugs and alcohol. You have to admit that you have a problem. I don't care if you drink a glass of wine every day. You want the buzz, you want the feel good from the alcohol. It masks pain. It does. It's good at it. And you can't mask it. Anyway, I'll have more later for you.